30-minute break.
Oh, it's from them. You have to listen to our talk.
We can ask about Unity experience now. Or,
Yeah, sure.
we're gonna have to re-ask them.
You can just talk to him. Hey guys, how's it going?
Just talk to him. Hi, bye.
Hi guys, I'm gonna get out of here.
Is there enough time for like a little demo thing?
Yeah, do you want to see what we're going to be creating today?
Oh yeah.
In the workshop? Okay. So basically our workshop's going to be walking through the steps to create this little kind of, it's a quick project basically where it's a little shooter where you can shoot these balloons that come up around you. And we're just going to be talking through like some of the basic stuff of setting up VR within Unity and a little bit of basic interaction. So can they see on the screen?
Yeah, they can.
Okay. So this is the scene we have set up. And you're going to be able to grab this little gun here and pop these balloons by shooting them. So, example in this. So this is what we're going to be creating today. Ideally. Right. Might wait a second for some more.
And Kyle went to break.
Kyle, yeah.
do some fancy shots in the meantime.
Yeah, do some trick shots.
What are your guys' favorite talks today so far? Anthony Davis, did anyone go out of that one from Obsidian? No? This is like my favorite talk. Oh, what do they look like?
I haven't seen all the talks yet. So it's kind of a hard question to ask.
This
may be the favorite talk.
Oh, okay, I just have that open.
I'm
really interested in VR.
Yeah.
Because I did get a new phone. Hell yeah.
You got dice also?
I got the dice.
So do you know how to use Unity? Like on
I think we can start.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Do you script as well?
No, I just learned the programming from the project that was on called Not a Clone. It taught me how to do the implementation, and it was done. It's pretty good. But yeah, actually, I'm working on another project. Hopefully, I can get.
Because people are still walking.
Unity, I think, with skills. But the best way to learn is just kind of like
What's our talk?
In order, if you guys want to follow along, you're not going to be able to
yeah.
test it because you are doing, or it's a VR game.
Yes.
But you can download the GitHub repository that has all of the stuff in it, like completed project and all the assets that you'll need to make it. At the top link, it's tiny.cc/sgdavr. And then below that is like a PDF with all the instructions. So if you guys like miss a step or something, you want to like try it on your own, like later at home, or if you're like trying to catch up to the talk, you can go to tiny.cc/vrpdf.
Can you guys read that from over there?
Yeah.
It's a little hard to see with this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to need the, if you're going to be following on, you do have to have the repo because we're using some prefabs from there and
art assets and
yeah,
stuff like
our
that.
assets and stuff like that. So.
I'll find it. Yep, easier.
Oh, easier? Okay, great. Awesome. Okay.
No, I'm just going to ignore it.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to
But yeah, you guys should start downloading it now.
For the people that just walked in, if you want to follow along, you're gonna have to download from the GitHub repo because there's it's an example project that has the finished thing that we're gonna be making today in it, as well as some prefabs that we're gonna be using in the presentation. So if you want to go ahead and download that, it's the top URL there. It's tiny.cc/sgdavr. And then the link below that is a PDF that you can follow along with if you miss a step or anything like that. Has pictures and things.
Alright.
Okay. I guess we're going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, we should go ahead.
So
Show them off the game, finished game.
with VR development, like I feel like a common misconception with it is that it's going to be some really complicated process compared to normal game development, where like you're going to have to worry about all the motion tracking and all that and whatnot. But the truth of it is that it's really no different from your normal game development cycle. Like all of the low-level stuff, like motion tracking and even interaction with certain objects, is handled for you by like there's a plugin that you have to use it with Unity, and that handles like all of the tracking for you. So the low-level stuff is easy, and all you have to do, like the only part that you have to do yourself is the meaty part, the fun stuff, you know, all the game actual process. So we're going to show you quickly just what we're going to be making today.
Oh yeah. I'm Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
I'm Colin.
I'm Rock. I'm the admin for the VR lab on campus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, talk
Our
to
brand
him if
new
you want to
VR.
register for next year's.
Yeah.
And I'm Justin.
Yep. So this is the scene that we're going to be creating today. We're going to be using Unity, and we're going to create a simple VR scene. So you can see I have my hands here. I can walk around in this virtual space. And we have a gun that we can use to pop these balloons by shooting at them. I can hold this, throw it up in the air, do a flip really badly. But, you know.
You can pop balloons.
Oh yeah, if I can get close enough. to one that's not out of range. Am I going to hit you? Okay. Smack around, you know. That kind of thing. Okay. So, we're going to go ahead and get started with the workshop now.
All right. So if you're doing this fresh, so I'm not sure if you had time to download it yet, but if you have, you can just start a fresh Unity scene. You're gonna right click in the content browser and then press create, and then from there you're gonna go to scene. Right there. All right. So we're just gonna name it gun, I guess.
Maybe.
All right. So now I'm gonna open this up. All right. Now to set up like everything, like the tracking with the controllers and the headset, you're actually gonna go to your asset store here. If this isn't there, you're gonna want to press this component. Oh, sorry. You're gonna want to press this window button up here, and then go to asset store, and then it'll pop up. That happened to me for a little bit. I couldn't figure out where to find the asset store. So now you're gonna press Steam VR. Came up, and then you're gonna go down here.
Spelled wrong.
Oh,
Yeah. Anyway, so these assets are actually already in the project.
We have
Yeah.
already
But
recorded these
this
for you.
is if you were to start a brand new project, this is how you would download the assets that we're going to use.
downloading them right now.
Yeah.
We're gonna be
so
using-
we're actually not going to download it, but you're going to click this Steam VR plugin on the screen there, and then you're going to press download, and then after it's downloaded, just import it into your scene. So ours is already in, like they said. So you just want to go to that Steam VR folder that's going to appear there. You're going to want to double click that, go to prefabs, and then from here you can just bring in your camera rig. So
With this plugin, it sets up everything you need for VR, like tracking and everything. When you first start up the plugin, it'll bring up a bunch of options. All you gotta do is click accept all, just accept any pop-ups.
So I brought in a plane so that we have a floor, basically, because I just realized there wasn't nothing there. And then I'm going to bring in this camera rig. It's a little bit lower.
So reset the transform.
Yeah.
You can click on the
Click
gear
on the
at the top.
plane and set it to 000.
Or that. Okay. So the two prefabs, or the two assets that we're going to be using are Steam VR and VRTK. The Steam VR is what's necessary to do all the tracking and whatnot, and then VRTK stands for Virtual Reality Toolkit, and it handles a lot of basic interactions like picking up objects or interacting with things, using things, walking around. It gives you some low-level interactions you can use to build off of. So that's what we're going to be using to make the gun grabbable and shootable.
And you'll see later on, when we're done, that when you popped the balloon and that it flew over, that actually is just like a default interaction. That was just a bonus. There's no coding involved in that. It just automatically will do that. The gun and stuff involves scripting, but that just happens automatically. You can interact with the world.
Yeah. So once your camera rig is in the scene, you're going to want to get rid of the main camera there because you're using your camera head and not the camera it gives you.
You'll get some weird errors if you have both.
Yeah. So now if I press play, I'm not sure if it's
You can see that that's literally all we had to do.
Oh,
We can
I'm
already
sorry.
walk around.
One thing I forgot actually. So there's a little error that's going on with Steam VR right now. When you bring in the camera rig, for some reason update poses isn't in the script, and you need that to track the controllers. So we're gonna go to the camera head and then the eye, and then from there you're gonna scroll down, go to add component, and you're gonna bring in update poses. I'm spelling things wrong, like keyboard is.
Which tool does that script? Oh, Steam VR.
Steam VR has update poses.
So now that it's in there, he can see the controllers.
And that's all there is to set up. Very basic, just having movement in VR, being able to track the motion of objects. It's much easier than you would think. So,
All right. So now I'm going to bring in this thing called VRTK. He explained what that was earlier. You're going to go back to your asset store. It's the same as before. You're just going to put in VRTK, and it's going to be your first, actually, download.
VRTK and Steam VR both have example scenes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they both have example scenes that you guys can check out. I'm not sure if they're in our project. Did you delete them all?
Yeah, no, they're still there.
Okay.
VRTK especially has a lot of nice example scenes.
Yeah. If you were to do this at home, there are example scenes that come with these tools that you can open up to see how things are done. So if you're wondering like, oh, there's that update poses script, how am I supposed to know to use that? There's example scenes and tutorials and stuff online that like and it's very well documented. So you can figure out what script you'll need to just attach to like the controllers or the camera rig to like accomplish some of this stuff.
Alright, but yes,
We
that's
already
the same
have
as
this
before. We
project
already
already.
have it, so we're not going to import it into the scene.
So we don't have to waste time waiting for it to download right now. And if you download it from the Git repo, you also have it in your projects. You don't have to import anything.
Oh.
That's okay. Just go back to CPU.
Yeah, they have a bunch of things from grabbing to touchpad locomotion to teleporting to like bow and arrow shooting.
Haptic feedback.
Yeah. They have all kinds of examples. It provides a lot of low-level interaction things for you that you could build your scripts off of, so you don't have to write everything from scratch. You don't have to worry about the code for picking up objects or for touching things, or it even has some higher-level stuff. Like it has a bow and arrow example for you, I think. There's like multiplying the amount that you throw, so you could like throw a baseball and it goes faster, that kind of thing.
And,
There's a lot of nice example scenes in it, and it provides code for grabbing things, for using things, for I think it also does some adaptive quality stuff to make sure that the resolution and frame rate stays high. So it handles a lot of the low-level stuff for you, so you don't have to worry about it. You can focus on like the meaty stuff of your game.
Yeah, and they're both free, by the way.
Both
yeah.
free.
Do these also cover like audio as well, and like where it plays?
Yeah. If you've worked with Unity before, it's just the normal audio listener. So it's already a 3D audio system. So you just attach that to your camera head, and I think it's already on there by default in that camera rig prefab we dragged in. So it'll be able to tell, like, if there's a sound that happens from an audio source to your left, you'll hear it in your left ear. It handles audio.
Another great thing about VRTK is they have all these examples here, and they're kind of like ascending in difficulty. So since you have all these examples, you can see how everything is set up if you don't know how it's set up in VRTK. They have everything from simple pointers, basic teleportation, basic object grabbing, touchpad access control. So if you ever wanted to just explore an easy way to find out how to set these up, just go to this examples folder, and it's just this linear thing you can follow.
There's tutorials accompanying like every single one of these scenes too, online.
Okay. So we're going to go back to our scene that we're going to be creating today, and then redo the cube thing.
That's the VRTK side.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Right. So just to actually use the VRTK, I'm gonna right click in the hierarchy, and then I'm gonna create an empty object. So you're gonna have to name this. This is basically where you're gonna be keeping the VRTK, like the toolkit.
Don't forget the brackets.
Oh, thanks. I'll add that in. I'll rename it in a minute. Yeah. So right now I'm just gonna make the left controller. Not like what's the setup?
It's at a slant.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to type. It's awkward.
So basically, what we're setting up right now, there's going to be two different game objects that we're going to have that work as aliases for our controllers. So any scripts that we attach to these two new game objects will be reparented to our controllers once we start running the game. And that is handled by VRTK through this SDK script that we're about to set up in a second. But basically, whatever interaction scripts you want to place on your controllers, we're going to place on these two alias objects instead.
Yeah. So you're going to go to Add Component on the side here, and then you're going to bring in the VRTK SDK Manager. And then you're basically just going to load in everything. So you're going to go to System, SDK, SteamVR, boundary. Basically, just set everything to SteamVR because that's what you're actually
Quick select.
using.
Yeah, if you go down to the bottom, quick select.
Yeah, and then it'll
That'll
just load
select
in
it.
everything. Yeah, forgot about that.
Also, if you notice, like in the options there's other systems besides SteamVR. So this works with Daydream, Oculus, whatever VR system of your choice. Most things that work with OpenVR will work with this. But for our purposes, we're using SteamVR, which works with the HTC Vive.
Alright. Having a little bit of lag here. Trying to just save it real fast. There we go. Save scene. Alright. So now you're going to auto-populate everything, and basically this makes it so that it pretty much sets up everything for you. As long as you have a Steam VR in here, then everything else will set up. And then you just need to put in this left controller into where it says left controller and then right controller, and you're already good to go. So now if we set this up,
There's nothing different
yeah,
yet.
there's nothing different yet. All right.
Okay, so that's the setup. That's all the setup that there is necessary. From here on out, it's just interactions and media gameplay. So the first thing we're going to do is actually set up some basic interactions. We're going to show you how to place a cube in the scene that you can pick up and toss around using some of the vrtk scripts. So we're going to just go ahead and create something like a table for our scene. It's just going to be really simple. We're going to add a new cube to the scene. The exact scale and size of this doesn't matter. We're just going to have it off to the side. And then we're going to make another smaller cube on top of that. And just scale that down to like, say 0.1. We want this to fit in our hand. And again, the exact positioning and size of this is not important. It's just going to be something for us to interact with in the scene. So, on this second cube, we're going to want to go ahead and add this script to it. So we can go to Add Component, and then search for Interactable. Object. Okay. So there's a script from vrtk called vrtk Interactable Object. And this is what allows most of the basic interactions. And there's all kinds of settings down here you can see for changing the highlight when you touch it, so you can know that you're within range of it, all that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to go ahead and tick this box that says is grabbable, and that will allow us to pick it up with the controller. So then we're going to go back to our controller aliases, and we're going to add
Just vrtk space grab. You put space, it will find it. It's fuzzy search. Interact grab.
Interact grab. There we go. Okay, so by adding that to the left controller alias, it's going to add 4 of these scripts to it. These are for use for all kinds of different interactions, like touching and grabbing things. So just by having this on here for the left controller, and I'm going to add that for the right controller as well. Now, if we run our scene, we should be able to pick up the cube by using the grip buttons on the side of it.
This doesn't.
Oh, we didn't add a rigid body, but it should add it once we're done. So now the default button is by using the grip buttons on the side of the controller. And that allows you to pick up things, interact with it, toss it around. Fancy. So you can, again, all of the settings, like you can change the button that you want to pick it up by changing the options of this interactable object. So like if I wanted to change the grab button, I could change it to the trigger in here if I wanted to. So that's basic interaction, but now we're going to do our own custom interaction. Yeah, the screen down. Okay. So now we're going to work on adding the gun into the scene that we're going to interact with. So the first thing we're going to do is add a new empty game object. We're just going to call this gun. And then in our assets, we already provided a model for the gun for you. And again, you actually don't have to have the model on there. You could have whatever on there. This is just because we wanted something to represent it.
Yeah.
So we're going to drag the model of the gun into the scene. It's going to be way too big at first.
You made that with Blender, right?
We found this one.
We found this one.
Oh, you found
From
this.
the
Oh, this is from the asset
This is
store. It's a
easy to
free.
find.
Yeah.
Just search M19.
So you can get an asset from the asset store. You could make your own with Blender, or when we were just testing this out, we just made it with blocks, like normal, like just regular default Unity 3D objects.
Like
So you guys can do that too. Yeah, just 2 cubes.
So we're going to make sure that the transform on our parent object is reset. So it's back to set at the origin, and it's going to be at scale 1:1. This is important for later so we don't have any scaling issues. And then we're going to have the gun model that we just brought in as a child of the empty game object called gun. We're going to make sure that's also at the local origin relative to the gun parent. Then we can just go ahead and place that over on the table too. Alright, so next we're going to give a bullet for this gun to fire. Let's go ahead and we're going to add a sphere, which means this is the bullet. The way our gun script is going to work is it's going to look for a child of this parent gun object, and it's going to find something named bullet, and it will use that as the bullet that we're going to be firing. So again, I just scaled down the sphere, and I'm going to place it where I want it to fire from on the gun. And then just to give some distinction, we're going to give it a different material. So if you go in the materials folder, there's going to be all these different colors. We're just going to assign it this red one. All right. And we're going to name this bullets. Then another important thing for the bullets is to make sure that you also add a rigid body to it, or else it will not fly through the air. It'll just kind of sit there when you shoot it. Okay. So we're also going to add a box collider to our gun parents. And then that's going to be slightly too big there, so we're just going to kind of scale it down. Again, the exact size isn't important, just something that's pretty close to the size of the gun. Just so it's, when we grab it, we have somewhere to grab it by. So anywhere that's within, if we try to grab anywhere within this box, that'll count as picking up the gun. So to access this, I'm just using this edit collider button, and then you can drag around these sides with the collider. And there we go. That looks about right. So, let's see. I know. Okay. So now we're gonna write our own gun script for this. So we're gonna add a component to this, a new script. Let's just call it VR gun script. Oops.
So just to point out, we did all of that without writing any of our own code.
Right.
So far.
It's
Right.
been super simple so
Yeah.
far.
You
So
just have
now-
to understand how the scripts work from VRTK, but once you do, it's super simple to set up all this VR stuff.
And there's a lot of big name games that were created with VRTK. I forget the list right now. I think Ordonez and Hand Grenades was using VRTK. There's a big list. I could look at it later, but it's not like it's some like niche thing. A lot of games that are on Steam that are big games have used these toolkits as well. Okay. So our gun script is going to inherit from that interactable object that we used earlier, and that will allow us to access some of the methods from it. Oh, and yeah. First we got to add the import for the VRTK scripts. So at the top of our script, we're going to add in using VRTK, and this will allow us to access all of the classes and methods from VRTK. Okay. So now if we just start typing in the inheritance, we can look for VRTK interactable object. So now that our script is inheriting from interactable objects, what we're going to do is override this method that's called start using. Can't spell. And that takes in a game object, and that's the game object that is using it, which in our case will be the controller. So, and then we're going to add this method in a second called fireBullet. So what this code says is basically just if we're holding the gun and we start using it, which again, if we go back out, you can see, I have to save that script. There we go. So now we can see we have all those same options in the inspector that we had from interactable objects, such as like is grabbable and is usable, which are two things that we're going to want to check. So you can see that you can change the button for use. So right now it's undefined, which means it'll default to the trigger. So right now we're grabbing it with the side buttons and using it with the trigger, which is pretty much exactly what we want. So we're going to write this method called fireBullets, which isn't necessarily VR related, but it's just a simple gun script like you would see in any basic game. So I guess I should set up the public references at the top first. Okay. So we're going to add 3 references at the top of our class. One for our bullets, one for our bullet speed, which will be how fast it's fired from the gun. We're going to start that at 1,000. And one for our bullet lifetime, which will be how long it exists in the scene. We're going to just default that to 5 seconds. Okay. And then in the awake method, which runs before start, at the start of any time you run the scene, we're just going to set up those references to the bullets. So it's going to be okay. just going to grab the bullet object that we created earlier from the child of our gun object. Lines, bullets. Okay. So that should grab that object that we created earlier as a child, this bullet here. Okay, so now that we have access to all that, we're just going to write this quick script that's just going to make a copy of it. Initiates. So we're going to make a copy of bullets. It's going to be at the transform of the original bullets. And the rotation of the original bullet. Okay, so that should create a new bullet object every time we pull the trigger. Now we're just going to want to set that to be active. Oh, another thing I forgot is that we don't want that initial bullet being there in the scene. We want to hide that. So we're actually at the start of the script, we're going to go ahead and turn that game object off by setting active to false. So that just means when we start the scene, this bullet should disappear. It'll still be there, but it just won't be visible to the player or interactable in any way. So this new bullet, we want to make sure the bullet clone is set active. It's true, so we can see the new bullet. And we're going to get the rigid body component from the new bullet. Dots. Components. So from that, we're going to go ahead and just add the force to it. Not explosion force. And that's going to be in the direction of the bullet clone's transformed out forward, so just the front of the bullets. And that's the speed of bullet speed that we set up earlier. And we're going to want to destroy the new bullet after it reaches the end of its lifetime, which we set to be 5 seconds earlier. Okay. I think that should do it.
Yeah, and if you're following along, then you may not have gotten every single thing that we just scripted, so show them where the completed script is in the.
Oh yeah, if you're following along on this PDF that we have the, I'm sorry, you mean in this?
Yeah,
we also have a completed version of that script if you weren't able to keep up, or if I went too fast or didn't make anything too clear.
Because it's really hard to follow like all of that. So
within our assets folder, there's this finished assets, and we have VR gun that just has the full thing, pretty much what I just wrote here. If you want to use that instead. Okay. So, I think we should be able to go ahead and use that. Let me make sure that the forward on this, I think the forward is actually facing the wrong way. Not that way. That should be good. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and try it, see if I missed anything. So if you grab the gun, it might be kind of wonky.
Oh, it fell over.
I think I just set the box collider badly. Let me check that really quick. This is here. Box collider. There's a little off to the side area. That was my bad. I didn't set this up very well. Just put that in the center. Okay. Alright, get that another shot. Okay. So the gun should be grabbable. Try pulling the trigger.
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
The use.
The use script. I'm sorry, I forgot to set. So back on the controller aliases, there's one more script we have to add, and that's to use objects. Okay. Just add that to both scripts, or to both controllers. So that's the script that you're going to look up is vrtk interact use. And if we have that on the controller aliases, those will get reparented to our camera rig controllers at the start of the game. And will allow us to use objects such as our gun. There we go. So that's basic shooting. Great. Do some trick shots.
You want to turn the gravity off?
Oh yeah. Another thing that we might just want to tweak is to turn the gravity off on the bullet so there's not so much bullet drop going on. This doesn't look too realistic. Okay. So, got details. You want to talk about it?
Yep. Okay, so you guys might have noticed that while I was picking it up, I had to go and like kind of line up where the gun was, and then I like had to click it because then, however you grab the gun currently, is kind of like,
So if I reached it, if the gun was laying on its side and I just reached at it normally and I picked it up, I'd be holding it like this,
Yeah.
like some awkward angle, you know?
You should
Which
show
is not
them.
exactly what we
It's
want.
not done
Demonstrate
yet.
that real quick.
You should, I mean, you should show them what, yeah.
Okay. So, next thing we're gonna fix is that this doesn't happen. Or if I grab the gun like this, I'm not holding it like this awkwardly, you know?
Super gangsta.
Yeah, that's a gangster shot. So, we want it to be something pretty close to that, you know? That's not great, but we would like it to line up ideally where the trigger is on the trigger of the gun. So something like how you see that I'm holding it right now. Well, it snaps to it, but something along those lines is how we want it.
And we're also going to turn off the controllers.
Oh yeah, we're gonna hide the controllers when they pick up the gun, so it's not like.
so basically what we have to do is vrtk uses something called a snap point in order to get that to attach properly. So I'm going to go over to my gun. I'm going to create an empty for that. Well, actually, before I do that, let me go over to the gun, and I will add something called a vrtk fixed joint grab attach. Now what that is right there is, it's kind of the method that your interactable object script, which is now called VR gun script, that's the method it uses to grab things. So then I could drag this up to that, the grab attach mechanic, though it will assign itself if you didn't do that. So what it's going to need are these snap handles right here. One for right hand, one for left hand, but we're going to use the same one for either. I'm going to go and I'm going to create an empty, and I'm going to rename it to snap point. Now it doesn't actually matter what you name it, but it's good to have some consistency. So I can just go and drag that to right snap handle. I can also drag that to the left snap handle. Let's see where the heck that thing is. All right, that's over there. And after you drag in this vrtk fixed joint grab attach, there is a brake force. So basically what that is if you're holding the gun and like touch the table with that, like if it had that amount of force to it, the gun would come out of your hand. Well, we don't want that to happen, so we're gonna set that to infinity.
You can just type infinity in there.
Yeah, if you type INF, it should auto-complete it to infinity. All right. And I'm also going to drag in something that I'm going to use later called vrtk interact controller appearance. And what this is going to let us do later is when you grab something, it's going to hide the controller. So currently right now, this gun is, you know, it spawns vertically. It's really a little awkward. We want to have a visual way of lining it up with our controller. So how we're going to do that is I can go into one of the controllers here. So I go controller right. I'm going to drop down out of it. And I want to see what the model looks like. Now, you can't see it in the editor right now, but there's a tool that SteamVR lets you use called the model override. And I could choose any kind of model from here, and it will spawn there. See, right now it's a generic controller. That's not what we want. We want a VR controller Vive. So that's exactly what the controller looks like, so we can use that to position better. I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to move that over to my table. All right, so kind of positioning it like this isn't going to do us any good, so I'm going to go and rotate this. An important detail to remember is I'm going to have to rotate the controller, not the model. If I rotate this model, it's going to mess up my positioning, and actually I already made that mistake. So let me reset that, and it's going to go back to where its parent was. So I have to click controller right. Yeah. If you did that, then it's still going to be relative to its parent. So if I was waving around the controller in VR, it'll actually like be over there if you move the model instead of the parent. So make sure you're moving this controller right and not this model. This model should be at 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to grab this controller right, and that's the one I'm going to bring over the table because it's the parent of that. And then, like I said, it's not going to do us any good if it's laying like that. We want it to be like a gun, right? So I can rotate it along this x-axis till it's more or less like that. And it's pretty vertical, but I think I could get a nice solid value by going -57. And if you see there, the top of the gun is lined up like that.
So what I can do now for positioning is I can go and I can grab this gun. I could bring it under that controller right, and then I could zero it out to bring it closer. So I go 0, tab 0, tab 0. And I want to rotate this gun so it's in a proper place. So I already know that this gun parent, it is in the right place. It's already zeroed out to where the 0 is on this controller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the model, not the gun parent. I'm going to rotate that model over here till it's kind of facing forward right there. And I can, oops, sorry about that, I accidentally rotated it another way. I could bring that down there, and I could start kind of putting this controller where I want it to be. Now there's like, I'm sure there's a science behind this, but I think most people line it up to where the triggers are. But however you want to do it for your game. So I can line this up so that the triggers more or less are there and it kind of matches along the top. Then now that I have that matched out there, I know that it looks like it's roughly 90. How handy. So then now that that's at 90, I can see now that with a rotation of 57, this gun is matching where the front of the controller is. But you see, if I were to drag that out, it's going to be set to 0 over here. If I want to see what will actually be relative to the controller, I will have to zero this out. So what's actually going to happen is that's going to be pointing vertical like that if you were to grab it at that rotation. If I want to see how I'm actually going to position it, like so I can position it visually, what's actually going to determine that is the snap point, like I said earlier. So the snap point is going to have a proper relative rotation to the gun. In order to get that, in order for me to see that, I can drag this gun under the snap point. So now it's the parent of the snap point. And then to see how much I need to rotate it by, I can do it by this. And the rotation that this receives is actually kind of counteracting the rotation of the controller itself. See this controller right at -57. For this snap point, I can set it to 57. Now I don't know if you guys have experience with this in Unity, but when you drag something out of a parent, take a look at the right side where it says transform rotation. If I were to drag it out, those values will be modified to match what it visually looks like in the world. So it'll go to 0. And that's not what I want. I want to keep that rotation of 57. So I already know it's 57. I can go ahead, I can drag this gun out there. And then I could drag this snap point into the gun. All right, it's zeroed out. And I remember that the rotation was 57. So this got a little funny, but it's pointing downwards relative to the gun right here. But the gun is pointing forwards. So, oh yeah, and also we gotta make sure our bullet is in the right place, or else it's gonna be spawning from that other area and doing its relative forward, which is currently facing upwards, so I'm gonna set that forward again. All right, and does someone want to get up on that?
Did you assign the snap point on the joint?
Yes, I believe I did.
Alright, let's try it. So now ideally, the snap point should should snap to where we want to grab it on the controller. So if we grab the gun now, that looks much better. So no, regardless of how I grab it, like if it was on the table sideways and I picked it up like this, it'll snap to being exactly where it should be. So that feels a lot better than having to like hold it awkwardly to hold it.
And now you can actually line up the sights if you wanted to. There's still a travel time to it.
Yeah.
We didn't make our bullets super fast. Yeah, but that's essentially how you do that. And if I wanted to, I could, you can stay in that, please. I can go into my gun, and on its vrtk interact controller appearance, I can go to grab visibility and hide controller on grab. So now when he picks it up, you don't got that controller in the way and you're holding your gun.
So as you can see, there's no controller in the window.
Show them the sites.
Sites. Oh yeah, so you could like look, I don't know which eye they're seeing out of, is it the side?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're seeing out of the left side.
Oh, okay. Then you could look, you could actually line things up with the sites if you wanted to. It's just based on the model. But you know, it is shooting exactly out of the forward of the transform.
And if we have some time, we're gonna show off some other VR games.
Yeah.
That's something that's like you can't do in other games that is only accomplishable with VR.
A lot of what you have to think about in VR is what feels natural to the player rather than like how many buttons you have, you know. So if you're like, you know, in a game, like someone's not going to be good at Call of Duty who hasn't played video games before because they don't know like how to move, like shoot with like 2 sticks or how to shoot with a mouse and keyboard, you know. But with VR, it's like natural, you know. If you're good at shooting in real life, you'll probably be pretty decent at shooting in VR. It does carry over a lot.
But as a game designer, it's also your job to kind of replicate that, because then it is possible when you're, you know, kind of trying to line up the gun to the thing, your offset's a little off, so you don't want to kind of like ruin your player's muscle memory and like have the aim offset, because that's something that I've seen regularly come up in forums when they're talking about VR gun games. You know, you want to make sure that it's lined up properly to the controller, and I'm sure there's like resources online on how to do that. Are you going to talk about the balloons?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, so for our balloons that we're going to have spawning around the scene,
Everything's better with balloons.
Right, we're getting to the end here, and also the balloons are not particularly like VR related. It's just kind of a script that I have. I'll show you what it looks like really quick. So basically, I have this balloon spawner prefab that I've already created. It's in assets prefabs. If you're following along, you can just drag that into the scene. And then on it, it has this balloon spawner script that's really basic. It just has a reference to a balloon object or a balloon prefab that I've already created, and then a lifetime and how long it should be in between different spawns. So just start to subroutine, or coroutine, what do they call it? Unity?
Yeah, coroutine.
Yeah, coroutine, in Unity, and then it'll spawn a balloon every 2 to 5 seconds or so in a random position along this box collider that the balloon spawner prefab has. So anywhere within this green box, it'll start spawning balloons. And then that's, and then the last thing we have to do for our gun to be able to pop the balloons is we want to tag our bullets as projectile, because the script on the balloon itself for popping requires when it enters a collision, it checks if the collider's tag is projectile. And then if it is, then it'll pop the balloon. Okay.
So instead of a simulation, we have a game.
Yep, we have an objective now. Oh, we did it in play mode before where it hit the gun, but the balloon should be shootable and poppable now.
Yeah, I just whacked that one out of the way.
You can pop them, you can pop them.
See, we didn't have to do anything. That was just a bonus
Yeah,
thing
that's
from
just,
VRTK.
that's just because the gun has a collider. So, yeah.
Easy as that. We can take them into H3 and show them how toy-like your guns could get.
So yeah, any questions before we
Yes, about show our
some
scene
other games?
specifically. What we're gonna do next, or
I mean, it's kind of general, but it seems like with the knowledge between the four of you, you all put it together. How efficient would it be if one of you did it? Because it's like, you gotta do this, then you gotta put it on, then you gotta test it, and set all this up.
yeah.
I mean,
I know a lot of the, at least for positioning things in VR, it's kind of strange to have to like put on the headset and then like walk away from your computer and check stuff, I know Unreal Editor actually provides a in-VR editor for scenes, or whatever the equivalent of scenes are in Unreal, I don't know what it's called. But you could actually like build the whole game world in VR if you wanted to and scale stuff around. It's really impressive. I haven't personally worked with Unreal, but I know they provide that. Unity has a lot of nice, like the assets that we're using, the SteamVR and VRTK for ease of interaction, and a lot of like interaction with the editor itself, so you don't have to do a lot like of the low-level coding yourself. But I know Unreal definitely provides that, so that's something you could look into.
Also, that's basic. You could probably build this by yourself, like with all the scripts and stuff. I'm interpreting your question a different way. You could probably build like this all by yourself. You can use those like example scenes that I showed, like that we showed from SteamVR and VRTK, to like figure out how to do stuff. If you've like watched like just a few tutorials online, you get it pretty quickly. Yes, there's like 4 of us up here right now, but that's because we're doing the workshop in an hour.
Yeah.
And so we have 4 of us to make sure nothing goes wrong, because we can make mistakes. We made a few mistakes already throughout the workshop.
I definitely, I was working on a solo VR project before, and you know, within like a day, I had like something small playable like this, you know, within the first day of just looking at stuff online. So it's definitely easy to get into even if you're on your own.
Yeah.
One guy that I would definitely go to is Fuseman. He's a VR like YouTuber, and he's just amazing. And the stuff he makes is really like easy to follow along with, and it's pretty like awesome. Like the last thing I did was the Hadoken, I think it's called. Right? So yeah, so I made that in VR. Like there's a bunch of stuff that he just goes over, just random things, and it's always kind of step by step.
Yeah,
FUSEMAN.
Yeah, thanks.
I recommend him too. Like, this is another example. We went to Beach Hacks recently, and we wanted to make like a multiplayer VR game with 2 vibes using the same towers, and like none of us have any idea how to do that. So I watched like one of those videos, and I was able to figure that out by the end of like the 24-hour hackathon.
In
So
24 hours we made a
yeah,
multiplayer.
so you can figure the stuff out really easy if you just like can
Do it.
find some stuff.
Yeah. And in terms of like the tactile like feel of it, I regularly find myself like just resting it right here while I like program and stuff, or I'll either have it like right on my head already.
Yes.
So then whenever I like just want to do a full dive, I just do it. It's harder with glasses, but
Yeah.
I'll wind up positioning the, also the camera rig prefab that we dropped in, that is you in VR. So if you're moving, like if you want to move around further than the bounds of this room, so this like square you can see is the bounds that we've kind of set up here. That's the whole extent of this room, so that's as far as you can reach. If you wanted to go further, you move the whole camera rig around. So you would have to have some kind of, or I know VRTK provides some for teleporting or for touchpad movement, like you would with like a thumbstick, you know? And it just moves the whole camera rig around. So for workflow purposes, I'll usually just move the center of this like right next to whatever it is I'm interacting with. Like if I was, so I don't have to stand up from my desk, you know? I could just pop on the headset and then the gun's right there and then I can check it.
Is there a mathematical perimeter for understanding where how it's the algorithmic set of the room and square footage as opposed to where your towers are from the game? How would you know where your boundaries
Actually, it's just with Steam VR in general, when you first set up the VR, you kind of draw the bounds of your room. You take a controller around the outside of it, and you draw like the points of the room, so where you want the actual walls to be. It's not like detecting if there's actually a wall there or anything. You just draw it out beforehand, and then you tell it where the floor is. It asks you to put the controller on the floor.
Oh, so there's a calibration system.
Yeah, there's like a calibration.
and if you're in
And that's
VR,
what
if you're
you're
near the
seeing.
walls of it, you'll see it in VR. You'll see a blue wall right here, so you know when
So
you're.
we won't walk through the wall.
Yeah, you won't accidentally like walk into walls or
And each unit in Unity is a meter, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so
One Unity unit is a meter. So you can use that to kind of figure out the scale of stuff in your game. Yeah.
And have any of you guys ever used Unreal?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
So I use Unreal a lot too, but like, do you prefer, or would you say Unity is easier to pick up than Unreal?
Way easier.
Way easier?
Yeah. Well, there's this other thing that we'll just point out from the collab thing. It's the
Oh.
button.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
if just in general for Unity, there's this thing called Colab.
But
I
they
don't have
just
set up for
launched
this
it
one,
recently.
but It's a recent addition to Unity. I don't have it set up right now, but yeah, it's just like it's basically like it's a super dumbed down GitHub sec, like
Yeah.
basically where it's for collaborating with others on a team. So you just send them an invite to your project.
Email,
And
yeah.
you can all push changes to it. It tries to merge things, but it's like it's not great with merging scenes together. So you usually want to each work in your own separate scene, but beyond that, it's really easy to just push changes and get changes from everyone else. It's like you're all working on the same
Yeah,
project.
you
That's
just
a really nice advantage of Unity for sure.
yeah, you just click
It's a
this.
single branch GitHub.
Yeah.
You just click the button, and you just send out your email, like the project, to everybody's email that's on your team, and then there's just 2 buttons. It's like upload or download,
Yeah.
and that's it. And then you can just upload your changes, and then the other person that's working with you can instantly download it.
So the Unity plan what's the limitation of it? Is a full free?
Yeah, it's Unity Collab. Yeah, it's free, and the only limitation, like Colin said, is you can't work in the same scene. Like you can't change the same script, and you can't change the same.
I think you can do the same script actually. I've had it
Really?
merged.
Oh, okay.
Can you not? Okay.
Yeah, at the same time. So you can work on, as long as you're working on different things, and then like you upload, it's good.
And then there's also like some rudimentary version control on it. You can see like the history of last uploads to it too. So you could roll back to a previous version. If something broke, you could go back. But the only thing is that if you hadn't uploaded it yet and you downloaded a new version and it overwrote something, then that might be gone. So whatever's been uploaded at any point will be there forever. It's just that if you've never uploaded, like if you've never pushed a change, that might get lost if there's been some conflicts. But it will usually ask you if there's a conflict. Like it won't like overwrite stuff without asking you. It'll be like, hey, there's a conflict of this. Do you want to use their version or yours?
Yeah.
And then you just pick.
So you just did, like the easy like fix for that is just before you download something, if it says it's going to overwrite it, you just make a copy of the project, put it on your desktop or something,
Make sure you
and then just
backup.
transfer the stuff back in.
Do you guys use deep cracking?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
Gitcrack
was-
is good too. If you want to use actual like
Are
version
they
control,
like similar?
Yeah, it just
Requires
Cobalt's
a
just
little
really
more
easy to
setup,
use.
yes.
It's
built
really-
into Unity.
it's really easy if
That's-
you're on a time crunch, like at a hackathon or a game jam.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to show you some examples of like full games in VR and some things that they do
I
right.
think there was a question.
Oh, sorry.
While you load up.
Okay. Well, let's slow down.
Is there any more questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, if I can't afford one of those yet, is it easy to make like a first-person game and then set it up as VR later?
A lot of people try to do that, but one thing, like it's kind of a conflict within the VR community right now, to where some people will say that like, oh yeah, that's what the VR community really needs right now is more like big first-party games that are just ported to VR. But like a lot of people would argue that like it's not going to feel right in VR unless you built it from the ground up for VR, and that's personally the side that I take because there's a lot of mechanics that are in like just your normal game, like just stuff you take for granted, like being able to push one button to reload and just having that be a really quick action. And that's something we're going to show in this, is that in this they have like a whole reloading system where you're pulling the clip from your side and popping it into the gun. It's like, and that takes a couple seconds, you know? And that's something different that you're not really accounting for in a normal game. Or even just movement in general is a big thing. It's going to be different, you know? Like you have to decide in some way that feels natural to move around within the game. A lot of people will either do teleport movement, where you point where you want to go and then teleport there, or they can have touchpad movement, which is the most like your traditional game. But that's going to, a lot of people, like, I don't know exactly what the statistic is, but it's like, you know, like 20–30% of people get motion sickness from if there's artificial movement in a game, where they won't get sick if you're actually walking in the real space. That's actually how I am. So you can, as long as I'm walking in real life at the same time I'm walking in the game, I don't get sick at all. But the second something starts trying to move me around, like if I'm sitting in a car in VR or if I'm moving with a touchpad, then I'll start feeling sick. So that's something you have to keep in mind when you're designing like a big map, you know? Like it's different between a non-VR game and a VR game. You have to keep in mind.
Yeah, if you don't have the equipment, I would suggest getting a cardboard. I often
Yeah.
build with a cardboard and then just switch it over to the Vive because my laptop is crap. So the second that I can use my desktop, I just switch everything over. It's pretty quick. I think that Fuseman actually goes over that too if you wanted to check it out. So yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, that's a really good
For those of
suggestion.
you that don't know what cardboard is, it's literally a piece of cardboard that you slide your smartphone into, and it's a VR goggles. It's
You
probably
can
it's
get-
like $10 or something.
And it's not that bad actually. You can get them for $5 on Amazon. $5.
Additionally, there is this thing called a Nolo VR, which is like using the cardboard, and it has a sensor that you can attach to it, and it'll have a controller tracking.
Yeah, it's
I
like
think
the
it's-
Leap Motion, but just attached to your head.
Yes. And I'm actually on the opposite end of that argument, where I say like you can prototype a game in an FPS and then take it to VR, because the setting up in VR is as easy as we showed you it there. But like the issues that you may run into are things like scaling. So if you didn't like have scale like as into consideration when you're building your FPS, or if you didn't keep in mind while you're developing it that it's going to eventually be VR, then maybe some of your gameplay mechanics might interfere with that. But in terms of replacing like the player controller, like the FPS guy, with a VR guy, I don't think that would be much harder than what we just showed you there. And also what we're about to show you right now.
Because you're saying that you may, when you replace a VR guy, the world's actually bigger.
It'll feel bigger.
You
Like
can scale it.
you can
Just
scale the
change
VR
size
guy,
of the-
yeah.
Like the
Oh,
camera,
okay.
you can just make it bigger, and you're bigger now.
Okay.
That's all there is to it.
But it's all like gameplay consideration. Like if you were developing that first-person controller prototype with mouse and keyboard, and you knew it was gonna eventually become VR, you just keep that in mind, and you're like, oh, that's how things are gonna feel eventually
Okay.
when I get these controllers and I can do that stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of efforts to port non-VR games into VR for sure, though. I know Minecraft has a mod right now. You can play all of Minecraft in VR. It's really amazing,
It's
actually.
called Vivecraft.
There's
Yeah.
Fallout 4 is coming
Fallout
soon.
4 is coming soon, so that's going to be huge.
Payday 2 is in VR too.
Payday.
Oh yes.
I heard some guys are working on a Half-Life 2 mod also for VR.
And Payday 2, apparently you can play against other PC players,
Yeah.
like who are using
Oh,
mouse and
yes.
keyboard and aren't in VR. So that's kind of a testament as how it's possible. But we'll see how that turns out.
But with games like that, you definitely can't just walk before you move. You have to use the.
Yeah, there's
Right.
gonna like there's not gonna be teleport movement obviously because that's just gonna be game breaking, you know. So that's like the kind of things that I was saying you have to consider like from the ground up. So I don't know how they're gonna handle that honestly. but
I
I'm
think that
excited
they're
to
gonna
see.
do OOB, which
Oh,
is
out of body.
out of body. So basically, you see your body move, and then once your body is at the location, then your camera head snaps to it. It sounds like you'd get sick, but it's actually really cool.
Yeah. So
It's
it's like
kinda
you
like-
spawn a ghost out of yourself, and then
And
it
it
walks. It walks.
Oh.
You steer
And
it,
then you
and when you
just
let
snap
go,
it.
when you stop moving, it just puts you see out of their eyes all of a sudden.
So
It's kind of strange. It's like controlling a little third person. It's like you go into third person when you move, and then when you stop moving, you go back to first.
So the reason why I like this game is because I can already show all of these. So right now I'm using slide to target, so it's like an RTS.
Oh yeah, these are the different
Yeah.
movement styles.
Or I can go touchpad where I'm just like walking around like this. This makes some people sick. Or I could go to arm swinger, really weird way to do it, but some
Yeah,
people like
run
it.
in place.
Power block to the
It helps some people though with motion sickness for sure. I've heard that.
And
that
then,
helps.
what's it called? Oh yeah, and back to standard old teleport. So the reason why I like this game, it's a real simulator. Like the guy who made this is a real gun nut, so he knows his stuff about like realistic guns and stuff. So I'm using it to train, and I'm planning on like shooting at a range at the end of the month after I get my paycheck. But here's the gun, kind of like what we made. A nice design that he did was a way to holster it. So I can just release it while it's in any of these balls and it'll holster it. And unlike us, he has a reload system. If I holster this gun, I can like put it in there and I can now spawn infinite ones. Now with a real gun, you have to do all these things. You gotta like load it up, you gotta pull the slide, and you gotta shoot. But on top of all the stuff we did, like we just showed you how to shoot, all of this other stuff is just gonna be like, you know, like similar gameplay logic to how you did everything. Except for, I mean, you might be wondering how he does this for the reload. I'm pretty sure this magazine has a collider, and inside there, there is a collider as well. And then once it hits it, it's gonna go into there. And also, this is just like a grabbable object that has a constraint on it, so then you can just pull it. And I love this game because you see that, even the shells come out. That might be like something you guys want to program in. And even if you like, say I shot it a whole bunch, I ran out of bullets, slide locks, you can even pop in another one, and then put the slide forward.
You're so much faster at that than me.
Oh, yeah.
I tried this game last night. It took me like 3 minutes to reload.
Oh, trust me, before I started playing this game, I really sucked at shooting.
How do you know where you're aiming?
He's looking down the sights.
The reason why on the screen it looks like I'm not looking down the sights is because on the screen you're seeing it through my left eye, or else, you know, you'd be seeing like two screens. Like I'm aiming with my right eye, so then you can actually line up the sights as accurate. And I think this game is a good testament to how accurate and realistic you can get these. When I'm developing for VR, I like to think of everything as a toy. So you kind of think of every object you can make as toy-like. And so yeah, and this game is a good example of how like VR could be educational, because if you choose another gun, you could learn how to load it. You could learn a lot of nuances. Like I didn't know how to load a SPOS 12 before this. And over here, you can actually see the ammo types and stuff. So I think this game is one of the best examples of VR for education. So I now know how to not blow myself up with a grenade. I know that's not cooking yet until I like, you know, flip that off and then, oh no, I'll die. I would have died, but yeah.
They're using this to train like surgeons and stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then there's such precise like loading to it. In fact, you can actually spawn the individual bullets for these and load them into the magazines. It's pretty wild, honestly. Like if I went 45 ACP right here, I can choose different ammo types, and this is something you guys might want to do when you're doing that. And if I press right there, I can take bullets out of that. And
Also, that's another good example of something different that this thing does with VR, is that another thing you have to think about a lot is the UI. Like, how do you communicate to your player how many bullets you have left, or how much health you have, or whatever? Because you can't just stick a thing on their face, because it feels really awkward to like look in your the top right of your vision to like see your health bar. So usually you want to have some kind of world space UI. Like what a lot of people do, if you ever played like Dead Space, where you have it like on the back of your gun, you have to find some way to cleverly like implement the UI within the game world. This thing has it in the form of a tablet you can carry around and spawn stuff with. So for the spawning menu, you know. But UI is definitely a very interesting thing to work with in VR. You have to find clever ways to do it.
So you mentioned that, and I was thinking about, so if it's in VR, what would make it different from if you have the health bar being in your face, like how most games are doing it now, like BioShock or things like that? Like, is that just going to take away from
For
the
one,
vision?
yeah, it does take away from your vision somewhat, but for the main thing, it's just, it feels distracting. Like, it's just, you have something attached to your face, it just feels really awkward. I mean, if you had it cleverly implemented, like you thought, like say it was like a helmet, like heads up display or something, I can see it working, but for the most part, it just feels really awkward. Like, as I've had it before, even our game, we made a game for our senior project where we have the health bar like at the top of your vision.
No, I don't mean the health bar. I mean like when you get shot in normal games, there's a blood screen that happens and things
Some
get
people do
darker.
that.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
That was
Yeah,
like
that's what I was
That would make
saying.
everything
Out
turn
of it
red
yet,
and blood
yes.
splatter. That would
Okay,
still,
yeah.
that
He's
would
talking
actually
about
feel
UI
fun.
menus.
Oh
and
yeah,
elements
I figured that
just
would,
follow
yeah.
you around.
Yeah, that's not good.
You can't just make something that sticks to your face. It has to be.
You want to have stuff in the world usually.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things will have the ammo count on the back of your gun or something.
So he's got another question.
Have you heard of is there any kind of technology that has like say a small camera inside your head, like
Yeah,
headgear? I could like follow your eyes, and so that would
Oh,
only
yes.
if you
Yeah,
only if you
that's-
like look up, do you see your health, and then when you
Yeah.
look back, it's not.
I know eye
Yeah.
tracking is. I've seen some like tech demo videos. I forget exactly what the name of it is, but it's there. It's should be
VR. If
coming
you
out like
Google
this year.
VR eye tracking, you will find something.
They
And
actually
have a
just
demo
came
where
out
you
with
can
the
see.
lens you can buy too that does exactly that.
And then you could like trigger certain things only when they're looking like in the specific area.
Yeah. In fact, they're trying to make that so that only the area you look at is like rendered at full quality, and then when you look at another area, that's full quality and that's blurred. So it actually can improve performance with that kind of eye tracking technology. Glad you asked about that.
So have you guys tried tracking anything in like a physical objects at the same time, like a hybrid? Type of thing?
You're talking about with the tracker they built?
Oh, the HTC has a tracker, but yeah, so like if you had like for example, like I'm interning right now at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, and we're working in the virtual reality lab. So we have like basically a simulator where we take the pistol grip tool, which is the astronaut space drill, and we put a HTC tracker on top of it and track it in the International Space Station. And these astronauts are trained inside of it. I'm wondering if you guys have messed around with anything like that before.
I
Don't have access to tracking.
Yeah,
if anyone's you.
Well, you can use the Vive. I mean, on top.
Yeah, I have one of the trackers. I've used it for a fire hose once because I wanted to put a fire hose in the game. I saw it in the trailer for it and I was like, that looks really cool. I wonder how to make that. So little stuff like that. I haven't really used it much. I mostly like the controllers better because most of the things I do and make are like a gun or a bow and arrow. So it just feels like better to have the controller there.
Yeah.
I have seen the trackers, some cool ideas for the trackers. I mean, even just, you can do this with the controllers even. I know a lot of games that I've seen already implement this, but where they have one of the controllers be a camera, technically, so you can have a third-person view of whatever's going on. So you can have someone that's not in VR that's just holding the camera, around. So for everyone else that's sitting here, like you could see him in third person. Like if I was holding the camera from here, you could see him leaning over and picking up the guns or whatever like that. So I've seen that as a nice option for something you could track. As far as sticking to trackers on things, at least in the world of game development, what I'm most excited for is that you could have third-party controllers. Like if you wanted to have it, instead of having these little wand things, you could have an actual like gun controller, that you're holding, and track that in VR, or something along those lines. So I know that that's a potential possibility.
How come a lot of VR games don't have like arms and your torso when you look down?
I think that the main thing is that the only three things that are getting tracked right now are your face and the hands. So I know there are some games. I'm not sure raw data really quick.
Yeah, you can rig that, but it's just kind of like a pain. So
Well,
places don't.
Yeah, it's a pain, and it's not very accurate sometimes with just 3 points of contact. But that's another thing for the trackers. If you just want to have one that you just stick on your chest, that's like just having that fourth point of contact of where you know where the person's chest is. You could do some like what's it called? Is it inverse kinematics?
Yes, inverse kinematics is the term. The reason they don't do that is because they don't want to implement that, and because it can also be buggy at times too.
Yeah, but you could basically just like guess at where the rest of their body is from just having those points. But just having the 3 right now isn't quite enough to have a very accurate one. But some games do it, where you have a full body in VR. It feels kind of awkward right now.
Have any of you played Second Life? Okay, yeah. Well, they're making that game for VR, and they're actually doing the full body. I'm interning them I'm interning with them during the summer, and they have the full body, but you can see it's kind of like wonky at times, like when they try to express themselves with their arms. Sometimes it'll like bend back or something, you know, just little stuff you have to kind of look out for that you might as well just not even bother to implement.
That's the Project Sansa, right?
Huh?
Is that Project Sansa?
No, it's I know it's not. I'm forgetting the name, but I know it's not. It's not that though. Sorry. That's kind of what it is. You can
Yeah.
switch it over whenever if you wanted to show them that.
Okay, well, I guess we can show raw data really quick. Or
Yeah. And then then we're like out of time.
Yeah.
Another big thing that VR is gonna, I mean, I'm excited for the future of VR because I think that. Hang on, let me find. There we go.
So while he's finding this, have any of you played accounting at all? It's like a Rick and Morty game. The creator of Rick and Morty made it.
Yeah, Justin Roiland, if you know him.
Oh yeah, I know about it.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say about it?
Oh, I was just saying that's like because I really am into the storytelling kind of aspect of VR, being in a story, like being the main kind of character, and that's exactly what he did, and that kind of just aspect kind of just makes me excited for it.
Yeah, feeling like you're there.
Huh?
Yeah, definitely feeling like you're there. There are a number of already like some decent immersive story games like Arizona Sunshine. It's a zombie game,
Yeah.
and like Rick and
We'll show
Morty.
off this game.
You'll see like in their game design, the things that are possible with VR. Like in accounting, it can like keep track of where you are actually standing. There's no locomotion or teleport, but if you like walk to certain places, they'll respond to where you are. Like just programming the NPCs to respond to that. It's a really fun way to do it. Like I remember there's one part where there's like skeleton bones and you're supposed to play them like a xylophone, and they're all talking to you, and then they're like, oh yeah, play me. And then if you walk away from them, they're like, oh no, where are you going? Like, I'm not done. Oh whatever.
Wait,
But
what
yeah.
game is there?
Accounting.
Oh.
Accounting. It's really funny to watch someone play through. It's a really.
I don't want to spoil anything because it's a fun game.
And then I guess we're pretty much out of
Yeah,
time.
let's just
but
show this
we can
really
just
quick,
show
really
this.
quickly.
And then one final thing that I was going to say about, at least for the future of VR, or even just now, for the social aspect of VR, like there's all kinds of online multiplayer games, and even just like it really feels more like you know, if you're playing a game online with someone and you just like a traditional game, you know, seeing their character, like you can talk to them, but it's not really there. But like actually, you feel like you're in the room with them when you can see their body moving around, and you get that that layer of like body language that you don't get normally. You know, like you can see like if they're thinking about something and they cock their head, or just like if they're starting, you can see them get scared by you know, it's really weird to like see someone in VR. It feels like you're in the room with a person more than you're playing a game. You know. So there's all kinds of social VR games that are out right now.
If there are two games you need to check out for a social experience, it's Rec Room and Pavlov. Because Pavlov is CSGO in VR. It has location voice. So if you're near someone in the VR world, you'll hear them, even if they're the enemy. So then it's pretty fun. You can run around and talk to people. And then you just see them like taking cover and everything. The inverse kinematics is done pretty well in that game.
So the only thing we want to show in this game is just the inverse kinematics really quick. Right, just you have arms in this game.
See, my arms are
I guess-
reversed. So
Oh man, so bad.
Oh, God,
yeah,
my wrist.
never mind. I thought because if you're in third person, if you see other people playing, you can see their whole body, and it guesses it where the
So
rest
there's
of
my
their
arms.
So
Yeah, the reason why they didn't want to put the rest
I
is
think we're out of time.
Yeah, we're out of
So
time.
We're gonna show off a little bit of the game, and then we might do some like if you guys want to come and try this, we'll probably be showing like demoing some games during like dinner time a little bit, just for if you could.
yeah. So we'll probably be in here. We'll just is this room getting used?
No.
Okay.
Anything else?
We'll be in here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, save those links in case you guys want to do this at home.
Yeah. So yeah, can you bring that slide up?
Yeah. So you can, yeah.
There's the links for the project repo that has the finished project that we made today.